Hey everyone, it's AW from A Sticky Obsession. Today we're going to be making a Black Widow decal. I'm going to show you some ways that I do this. There's some native functionality built into CorelDraw that will actually help with that hourglass shape. So I'll show you both how to use the built-in envelope tool to get that effect, and then how I do it when there's not necessarily the envelope tool or some built-in tool to take care of it. So this is a pretty straightforward. Let's get started. So we're going to start with a circle. All right, and then we're going to go to the properties of that line. We're going to make that line pretty fat. Let's go bigger than that. Bigger still. A lot of this is going to be trial and error. See, I feel like that's too big. So let's scale that back to say 20. Let's go down a little more. 19. How do we think about that? Yep. That looks pretty good. All right, so the next thing we need to do is get the hourglass in there. So we're going to start with a rectangle. And we'll select both of those, and we're just going to center them up. All right, that looks, let's go a little bit fatter. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to use the built-in tool. We're going to use the envelope tool. And we just take we're going to add a preset, but the first thing we need to do is right now this is still square. So you can manipulate the corners and whatever else. We just need to make it a normal object. So we're going to hit Control Q to convert that to a curve, as it's referred to in CorelDraw. So the other thing we're missing is there's no nodes here in the middle. So if we go grab this preset, and if we scroll down, we'll find the hourglass. You'll see that it makes the lines bent, and that's not what we want. So what we want to do is we want to add a node directly in the middle of these two lines going up and down here. So you could just select one and then hit the add node tool, but I always have a problem knowing which direction it's going to put it. So what I do is select them all, add node. So it's going to automatically add a node centered between the current existing nodes. Now these two here we don't need, so let's get rid of them. All right, so now let's go back. All right, so we're going to go and we're going to add new. We want to do keeping straight lines, add new. Now if we hold down Control, you see that it'll kind of keeps each one mirrored. If we hold down Shift, it's going to pull them in and out. Now I've made my lines wrong here, so let's fix that. And we'll hold down Shift. We'll drag them in. And there we go. Now there's the preset, so let's Control Z to undo that. Let's get rid of these nodes. Add preset. Apply it. Alright, so what we need to do now is, because I want this middle section is too close together, I need it to be a little wider apart. And we need to, so what we want to do first is convert this to an object, or excuse me, a curve. Alright, and now that it's a curve, what I want to do is I'm just going to modify 1/2 of it. So in CorelDraw 2017, as far as I'm aware, there's not a symmetrical tool like there is in 2018. So what I'm going to do is, when you get rid of these nodes here, I'm going to grab this node, holding down the Control key so it stays on the right plane. I'm just going to pull it out to about where I think it should be. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select all of these and hit Control X. That's going to get rid of them. Now if anyone has some advice or tips to make this type of thing easier, making two items symmetrical to one another, please by all means share it in the comments. We're a community here, and I think we all could benefit from each other's knowledge. So I just cut out those nodes, which got rid of 1/2 of it. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to drag in a guideline to put back to where the middle of this hourglass is. Go to my snap to, make sure my snap to guidelines is turned on. I'm going to select this half. I'm going to duplicate it by hitting the plus key. Then I'm going to mirror it. All right, with it mirrored, I'm going to hold down the Control key and drag it over. Now when I do, it's going to snap to that guideline. And now I know that each half is identical. So I'm going to select both of them, combine them to make them one object. If we double click, we'll see it's broken. So I'm going to join these two nodes and these two nodes. I just highlight them and hit J. I have that hotkey. And then we're done. So let's take a look. There we go. And that's not actually black. Now, whoops, that's a line at the moment. So yeah, so let's go look at a wireframe real quick. And you'll see that this fat line is just a single line with an outline on it. The outline is what's fat. There's not an object there. So if we were to actually try to cut this right now, it would look like that as opposed to looking like it does here on the screen. So we want to take this and we want to convert outline to object. All right. So now that we have an outline, you'll see I can change the color and the fill color changes. So there we go. Now I'm going to select both of these and combine. Now we have one object. If we were to send it to the cutter, it'd cut great. Now that's that one. That one's straightforward and pretty easy. But next one we're going to do is this one here with the red in the middle. It's a little more complicated, but it's still not too bad. I'm going to break this apart because I want to use the circle. So I'm going to hold down Alt and just drag right in the inside so that way I know I'm getting my circle. And I'm going to combine those two. And now I'm going to get rid of the hourglass. We're going to grab our rectangle tool. Get us a rectangle that looks about right. The first thing we're drawing is the red part you see there. So let's center this all up. Okay, we're going to convert it to a curve. All right, and now we're going to do the same thing with our envelope tool. Now this one we do want to be pretty tight, and you'll see why here in a second. So we'll, oh, I forgot to add the nodes. So let's add our nodes, and then let's add the preset. Apply. All right. So what we want to do now is so this is basically the red part. We want this black part. So what I like to do is I go to contour, and we want to do an outside contour. So we're just going to set some arbitrary numbers here. It doesn't really matter. We'll start with 0.4 and see where that gets us. That's way too big. So we'll dial this back a little bit. We want it to be just inside the circle. That'll work. Okay, next thing I want to do is we need to break the contour apart. And I'm going to go ahead and I just right click, break contour apart, which is not giving me the option now. Let's Control Z. Right click, break contour group apart. All right, so now we got two separate items. That one there and that one there. All right, let's go ahead and make this one black fill, and then grab that middle one, and I want to give it a red outline. Now what I want to do is make that outline bold. So we try 4. 4 is not nearly big enough. So let's go 10. 10 looks good actually. Let's go a little higher. Let's make it 11 or 12. 12 is even better. All right, but here's the problem. So this would be a 2-layer decal. The red would be one layer, and the black would be another layer. The white would just be negative space. The problem is, if we look in wireframe, you'll see we've got a bunch of lines here. And what we don't have is the double line for the red part. So we want to convert this outline to a curve. Control Shift Q. And now you'll see that we've got a fat line. We still have a problem. Now we want to weld these two items together. So we just select them both. So I've got the hourglass, hold down Shift, left click. Now I've got the circle, weld the two together. So now if we look at this, we've got exactly what we want. We would send this as two separate jobs. We would cut the black first, then we would cut the red, and then we just overlap the two together. What we're going to do is we're going to go another step further. Let's say someone doesn't want this red outline, but they want the effect. So what we would do is cut this out of the middle so it's negative space. Now you could just send all colors to the cut job just like this and then weed this out. But to me, there's a chance there that it's not done right, that you don't select both colors in your cut software and it doesn't cut it like it's supposed to, and you just wasted your material. So what I actually like to do is create a second file. So I'm going to select all of those items and move them up, make a duplicate. Now the reason I do this is I like to have a duplicate. Anytime I make a major change, I keep a running copies of each iteration, so that way if there's a goof up, I have a point of reference to go back to, because trust me, I goof up a lot. All right, so what we're going to do is we want to select both of these items, and we're just going to combine them. So you could either combine them, or you could do a back minus front, and it'll have the same effect. It'll punch the red out. Okay, and this is a problem. I don't know if this is a problem in all versions of CorelDraw, but sometimes this happens. So all we need to do to fix that is, let me show you what this does. Let's go back forward. Now if we look at the wireframe, you'll see it actually did punch it out. I mean, it's still there. This is all one object, but for whatever reason, it doesn't actually punch it out and change the color. So what we need to do in that case, let's undo. Let's select the red, and let's turn on and look at the nodes. And then if we come up here and reverse the node direction, so this basically changes the start node to the opposite direction. So we'll do that. Now if we come back and select them both and do a combine, it actually punches it out proper. The other thing I want to do is I want to go here and I want to reduce nodes. All right, now those that know my decals know that I don't like these sharp points, because what I feel like this is gonna it may not, likely it wouldn't, but there's the potential that this little sharp corner, when it's on an automobile or on something that's handled a lot, it could pick up, it could pick that and eventually come off. So let's go back and let's round these edges. So we can just double click to bring up the nodes, and there's still a lot of nodes in here we don't need. So I'm going to go in here and clean up some of these nodes. You don't need all these nodes on straight lines. All right, so let's grab, let's get rid of that one too. All right, so we're going to grab these, and we're going to go over here to the fillet, scallop, and chamfer. And you'll see as soon as I bring it up, it started to round them off a little bit. And actually that looks like a pretty good, there we go, that looks like it's a good radius. So there we go. Now if you want these outer corners to match, we could just select them as well. Apply that. Now this is where you end up going down a rabbit hole. It's like, well, now they don't seem to flow right. So you may want to take these guys around them as well. And then these have too many nodes. We can grab them and do the same radius. It just softens up the whole thing a little bit. And if you wanted the red, this one, to end up with the soft corners like that, you could do the same thing. We just select the red. We need to get rid of a whole bunch of nodes. Oops, wrong one. There, that softens the whole thing up. Whoop. Now again, if you want to just punch this out, that's probably going to not work. Yep. So let's duplicate it. Let's reverse the direction of the nodes, combine, and now we've got all those round edges already. So that's it. All right. I hope you found something useful in this tutorial. this little example of some things I do when making decals. This was a very simple one to do. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like it. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to subscribe. Thanks a lot.